one of my principles, in fact, it's the first principle of my 10 principles of financial therapy, is to approach money with abundant, compassionate curiosity and zero judgment.
Your relationship with money matters. I'm Michelle Perkins, and this is the Money and You podcast, where I will be breaking down your relationship with money, offering tough love money tips, and a money dating plan that will focus on lifting the barriers to success to help pave the way for better money practices and increased wealth. It's time to take control to live a limit-free life. It starts today. Hello, and welcome to the Money and You Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host, and so excited about today's show. We have a guest on. I've been wanting to have a financial therapist on the show. I'm a money coach. I do mentorship and things like that. I know a lot of people who are advisors and all kinds of things in the money world. But today's guest is the first true financial therapist who is actually a licensed therapist who helps people with money, who has been on the show. And I think she's going to be very, very interesting and enlightening for those of you listening who really want that better relationship with your money, to have, more of a loving kind of relationship with your money, something that is really working for you to create better financial well-being and financial health. So I'm going to just jump in and tell you a little about Wendy Wright. Wendy Wright is a financial therapist known for her expertise in merging psychology and finance. With credentials as a licensed therapist, money coach, author, and business owner, Wendy is a trailblazer in her field. Leveraging her diverse background as a former mortgage loan officer, business proprietor, and licensed marriage and family therapist, she pioneers transformative financial therapy and money consulting. Wendy's approach helps clients overcome psychological barriers impeding financial growth. As CEO of Financial Therapy Solutions, LLC, based in Denver, Colorado, Wendy offers virtual services in the U.S. and internationally. Her impactful teachings shed light on the fusion of psychology and finance, guiding individuals toward financial clarity and empowerment. She's the author and creator behind the Transformative Money Mindset Shift, a program designed to foster healthier relationships with money. Wendy's contributions mark her as a visionary, bridging the gap between emotional well-being and fiscal success. Welcome, Wendy.
Well, hello, Michelle.
I'm so excited to have you here today. I really mean it. I feel like so much of money is about psychology and emotional things. And, I still go back, I say this on so many shows, but, 15 years of work in accounting and finance, an MBA, I was a CPA, all the stuff I was taught about money, that I was, engaging in my jobs. Never once did anyone mention that there was psychology and
Right.
things underneath what we were doing with all the practical stuff around money that, led to people being successful or not. And so it is truly, in my opinion, the foundational piece. And when people talk about their money problems, it's typically not what we think. Oh, you don't make enough, or you're not, you don't know enough about money. You're not investing properly. It's not that. It might be that, but moreover, it's what you're talking to people about. So I really want to dig into this so people can also understand this foundation that they need. So, and I said this when we spoke, I love the fact that you're truly a therapist. There's so many terms out there these days for people trying to help people with money, but I think having that true psychology background is a real plus. So anyway, super excited to talk to you.
Thanks for that. Well, and that you get this insight that there is this connection between money and emotions is super important, and helps your audience understand this even more so, because it is true. Research actually supports upwards of 80% of our financial decisions are emotionally, I won't say emotionally based, but emotionally prompted, maybe emotionally framed. I work with people who are, constantly working on this, what I would call the intersection of money and emotions. And we begin to dig into what is the underlying emotion going on here. Or perhaps if we're talking about communication, often there is a communication that's trying to be done or had through a money behavior. And what we want to do is come in and elevate the words so that the words are being said instead of, oh, I'm going to buy this for you in hopes that you eventually get a job and buy it for yourself. Like those are not, like we do things, we make spending decisions based on some emotions or some sort of messaging that we want to give. And there's a lot of ways we can unpack this in a therapeutic setting.
Yeah, thank you. And I know when we talked initially, a lot of times I make I have analogies with food and money. You know, I mean, there's a lot of information out there about how to eat right. Why aren't we all doing it? And money's kind of the same. There's plenty of information on how to, manage your money. That's not the problem. So, and you have some experience actually in the food area, and that psychology, I think it's so interesting. I'll let you elaborate on it.
Yeah. Yes, because so I have an eating disorder specialization as a background, and part of how I began to merge therapy and finances was both from my background in banking and real estate and things like that too, business undergrad, but also recognizing in some of my higher level acuity eating disorder patients ways they were swapping eating disorder behaviors for money behaviors. And I was just curious enough, it just appealed to me enough that I have since written a presentation, workbook product, I guess you could say, online product called The Intersection of Money and Milkshakes, because there are some very real parallels between the relationship with food and money, including when you're struggling, whether it be with food, body, or exercise issues, or when I say money, I'm saying saving, debting, earning, all of those things, that it is not intellect based. And I think that's really, really important for people to recognize that some of their struggles really do not reflect their intelligence. Although in their head, what they might be saying to themselves is, oh, I'm so stupid, or I'm so cuss, whatever, kind of however the negative self-talk goes, which is why that's a lot of what we look at is what is the talk that's going on and how can we make changes in it. I'm doing a workshop in January. I think that will be like right after this podcast drops. So it'd be exciting if anybody listening wants to sign up for it. They can go to the website, sign up for it, but it's called Money Talk Makeover. And it is a real workshop. So we're really going to work on writing down new scripts for money that can have maybe a little less mean girl in it and a little more love and friendship in it. Like, how would you talk to your friend or how would you talk to a loved one? We can flip that around and let you talk to yourself that way. And it makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference. The words we speak, the thoughts we think, it all makes a huge difference, and it's all very connected. I love that. I think everybody should go to that workshop. That sounds amazing. Some of the problem is we don't even talk about money enough. And then, and now you're talking about when we do talk about it, let's talk about it in a way that is beneficial and serves us and not in a way that just kind of keeps us stuck in a problem. So, yeah, I love that. And we don't see it in ourselves. I see it all the time in people. They'll say things and I'll get called out on it too. I have a coach too. And, he'll be like, why are you saying that? And so, but they come out of our mouths kind of automatically, but they matter. And it's just like it's important to be conscious of our thoughts, it's very conscious to, it's very important to be conscious of what we're saying. Yeah, I love that.
Especially to ourselves. Like somebody asked me recently, how would you describe, and even as they were asking, they're like, you probably can't answer this question, but I'll just throw it out there. And they said, how would you describe like the main problem, people who are having problems with money? What is their main problem? And I thought about it for a minute. And I said, you know what? It's negative self-talk, I think, is a bigger problem than not having the right spreadsheet, not having the right app, not having the right whatever, the negative self-talk, because if you talk negatively to yourself, that leads to certain behaviors. such as a classic one is thinking I'm bad with money. And I'm using air quotes. I'm bad with money. Because if you are saying that to yourself over and over again, well, then you don't check your bank account. You don't look because it's going to be bad news. Why try? You don't ask for more money at work because you're not going to do the right thing with it. So why try? You're not going to put it in savings because you're going to blow it. Why try? And so as we begin to come out of that, I've created 10 principles of financial therapy, and I use them in presentations and in sessions and in the materials that I've written to kind of help people, first of all, understand what the heck is financial therapy, and also how can I apply it. And one of them is taking out any really polarized comments, such as bad, good with money. I don't believe that people are bad with money. I believe that they have things they don't like about it and things they like about and, seeing in someone else. So once we take that out, we can shift that dialogue and change the behavior.
Yeah, it's so important. Everything is about the, and you're the therapist here. So, when I think about emotions around money, my way of understanding it is that it starts with your thoughts. So you start thinking a certain thing about money, and then suddenly you're feeling something as a result of those thoughts. As a therapist, what would you say about that? Is that accurate? Is that off base?
Oh no, it's kind of a both and. So you might have the feeling first and then the thought, or you might have the thought first and then the feeling.
Okay.
So let's see if we can think of an example. So if you have the thought, let's go with what we were just talking about. If you have the thought, I'm bad with money, you might feel hopeless and despairing. And so then you act accordingly. What does someone who's hopeless do with money? They avoid it, or they blame someone else for it. Maybe you have a lot of, it's not my fault messaging going on in your head. Or maybe you're having this, maybe you check your balance and once again, you've overdrawn. Or maybe you check your investment balance and it's still not at 2 million. It doesn't matter what the numbers are, because I see the same emotions and thoughts in all number of people. But let's say you see something, a data point, and then that you feel, oh, I feel so sick and sad that that's my number. I must be bad with money. So it can go either way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And it's interesting to recognize that. Yeah, again, that awareness of what you're feeling and stopping for a minute and, not being reactive based on these feelings either, but to kind of analyze it a little bit, either with somebody like you or if you can on your own. But I find that reactions, strong reactions that people where they take an action based on a feeling or a negative thought like that usually doesn't result in anything good. I think it's very interesting to unpack those negative self-talk. I think that's huge. I think we pretty much all have it. I loved what you said. I was trying to go back in my mind about something that you said, and I just remembered. But the fact that it doesn't matter if you have $10 in your account or 10 million, you can still have negative thoughts. I do think there's this prevailing, well, when I have enough money, all my, issues will go away. I won't have these feelings anymore. I won't have these thoughts anymore. And that's just sadly not, well, it's not really sadly. It's good that it's not true, but it's not true. So,
right.
Yeah, so it isn't about, like you said, it's not about the amount of money. So what is it about? Is it about how you grew up? I mean, what is causing some of this?
Yeah. Because a common one also people will say is, I just need to make more money, and then that will fix everything. Right. And so what we want to look at, first of all, is there magical thinking going on? So if there's magical thinking going on, so like as if I just made more money or if I had more money, all my problems would be over. Now, there are cases for sure where an amount of money would make a difference. So I'm not coming into that kind of thing. We're talking more about the psychological impact of a consistent statement of, if I just made more money or if I just had more money, things would be different. I hope that makes sense as I make a distinction there. Does that make sense to you, Michelle? Okay. So when we are in this place, one of my principles, in fact, it's the first principle of my 10 principles of financial therapy, is to approach money with abundant, compassionate curiosity and zero judgment. And usually that is the foundational game changer for most all of my clients. Taking the judgment out, applying compassionate curiosity. So even if you're having a magical thought, and a magical thought usually has some sort of an all or nothing picture to it. So if I win the lottery, see, that's an all or nothing. If I just had more money, that's if, so we're looking at those. We want to come into that and say, what are you really longing for here? Maybe you're longing for more balance in your relationship with money, more appreciation at work. Maybe you're looking for, you wish that other people in your life would step up and help you, but you don't want to ask for help. Like there can be a lot of things going on. It doesn't have to be any of those. So that's where in my program, Money Mindset Shift, one of the first steps in a shift is awareness. And awareness, I hate to say this because it really can be annoying for some people. It starts with like journaling and breathing. Yeah. I know.
I say it too. And I'm laughing because you're like, oh, I don't want to bring this up again. But I always say the same thing. And I have the same like, oh my gosh, people are going to be rolling their eyes. But journaling, meditation, gratitude, breathing. It's all breathing. And why is it though? Why are we right on this one? It's because of. I'll let you tell us.
Well, it's because of what happens in your brain. So your brain is either like, here we have I-70. I don't know what major highway is near you that people go fast on.
405.
Okay, the 405. So here we have I-70 and people are going too fast on it. And so if you think about your money thoughts, are they going on I-70 at like 170 miles an hour? Probably. They're like quick, reactive. I'm just going to buy this. I have to get this over with or whatever. So when we take a breath, it's like taking your foot off the gas. Okay. When we take a breath and journal, you're not only taking your foot off the gas, you're also tapping the brake. And then you get to see, oh, I'm by exit 314 or whatever, whatever it is. Like you get to see what's happening. So when we breathe, and I won't go too deeply into the psychology here or the body part, the physiological part of this.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was like, what's that word? That things happen in your brain. So we want to begin to slow down the process. And if you feel like, oh, I just need to make more money, you will never slow down because your quest is to make more money. So it's hard to come into a peaceful relationship. And my experience is when you calm down the relationship and you have more peace in your relationship with your income and your outgo, you are more prepared to make more money because you're more prepared to ask for a raise. You feel more grounded, mindful in perhaps a negotiation of a new job. Like there's just a lot of ways that it begins. And you also tend to begin to put more money in savings. So a lot of changes happen from slowing the process down, bringing down, taking a breath. And like one of the things that I have this practice called breathe, intend, move. So we breathe, we take an intention, and then we put a SMART goal with it. SMART meaning this specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time sensitive. So that helps break down things into action steps. So maybe that if you haven't opened your banking app in 6 months, I'm not going to ask you to open it and read it. I'm going to ask you to open it and then close it back up. Just open it, close it back up. We just want to sort of baby step into these places. And this is where the therapeutic part comes in because, like the person at the bank is just going to be like, here, open this, da 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 da. And that's not their job isn't to hold your hand and say, and how are you feeling? That's my job. We're going to say, and how are you feeling? And what does this bring up for you? And have a lot of compassion and pay a lot of attention to that.
Right. And in that, you build new habits that somebody can actually use and stick to. Again, it's not that different from starting an exercise program or a new eating program. And I think for some reason we elevate money on some different level or we just think of it differently. Like, I don't know why we don't just allow it to be just like kind of everything else.
Right. Well, I think partly, tell me what you think, Michelle, but I think part of that has to do with shame, which is a word people hear a lot. But when it comes to money, shame is like a bully. And it shuts people down and it makes them hide their behaviors. And with money, that's not helpful.
No, and that's a great, great point. I'm so glad you brought up shame. And it's funny because, it's the comparison thing. And we think that that's something new since social media came along. But we've always been comparing ourselves with money. I mean, look at the neighbor's new car, all this old stuff from forever ago. And everybody's trying to, one up themselves. What was that old saying from when I was young about the Joneses?
Keeping up with the Joneses.
There you go. Keeping up with the Joneses. Nobody says that anymore. Now we're keeping up with the Kardashians or whoever it is. But,
Yeah.
But really, it's been around a really long time. And so there's been shame around money.
Yeah.
And frankly, this country was born out of immigrants who mostly came here with nothing and had to, begin and build. And so I do think there's a long history of shame around money that we don't understand, we don't really comprehend. And I think it goes very much along with what you were saying about judgment. If you come into the conversation around money with judgment, you'll create your own shame if nobody else has been making you feel ashamed. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And think about how most of us were taught. Most of us were taught money things by being called out on mistakes. And so we know, if you know anything about teaching and learning, that is not effective teaching strategy, although it is very commonly employed with, you spent how much on that? Or you took that pack of gum from the grocery store. Don't you know you're supposed to pay for that? No, a 4-year-old doesn't know that. It's like, so really coming into, would they know this? And assuming, when I'm talking with parents, I encourage them to assume that their child doesn't know it, and therefore they can teach. There's no harm in over teaching, but there can be just sort of mental bruising by an emotional bruising by assuming somebody knows something and they don't.
Yes. And that's so interesting. Getting into the whole parent conversation is really, I mean, we could talk all day about that because we do share a lot of our money stress or worries or whatever inadvertently. It's not like we intend to share that with our children, but we do one way or another, even if they just overhear conversations, that we're having around it. So, and it's very, again, you're the therapist. Somehow that all gets into your subconscious and creates some pretty serious belief systems.
It does. It really does. So it's really helpful. A lot of times with money therapy, we will start with, what's your first money memory, or what are your early money memories? And as we're talking today about ways to heal your money story, some of this is reparenting yourself around money, because you may have some early money stories that you haven't really. A lot of my clients will say, I've never told this to anybody out loud. So we want to really bring those up. And if you don't have someone you can tell out loud, you can journal it. It's really a cool exercise to journal in third person. Like, oh, well, this girl, she was in second grade and she heard this and whatever, and then kind of look at it that way so you can see how that was. Or you can perhaps just record it. Some of my if you're a verbal processor, maybe you want to record it and then listen to it again, because writing's not for everybody. I get that. So we want to have different ways of pausing with this, because once you hear where you began to learn some of the things you know about money, then you begin to change it. And that's part of the awareness and making those changes because you have paused, you've taken that breath, you have given yourself a chance to look back on your story without judgment. We don't look back. It's not truly helpful to look back necessarily and hang blame of, oh, so-and-so should have told me, or I wish, well, no, we'll say should, and I'll switch it to you wish they would have told you. It's perfectly normal to wish that someone had taught you how to balance a checkbook,
right?
Or how to manage a credit card. Of course, you wish someone had, but if we get stuck thinking, well, they should have, then we're stuck there. And we don't get to move forward and see, well, how can I learn how to do it now?
That's very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And the last thing we want to do is get stuck. I mean, with money, we need to move. We need to create momentum with money. So being stuck, we lose time, and time is really kind of crucial when it comes to money. So, yeah, I think that's a great point. And, as far as the shame, if we have that from an early time, we can do something about it. I would imagine, and I love your suggestions about journaling. Does it start with some sort of self-compassion? Does that help start unraveling some of the negative self-talk? How do we start?
Absolutely, yeah. That abundant, compassionate curiosity allows your sort of energetically to enter into your thoughts when you take the judgment out. Like if you just think about anyone who's listening or watching, just kind of think about a money thought that is something you probably wouldn't say to someone you cared about, or, someone that you even didn't care about. Maybe you still wouldn't say it to them, like, oh, you're so stupid, I can't believe you did that. And then what if you address that with compassion and curiosity, which means we want to look at, okay, for instance, what is my goal by telling myself I'm stupid? Okay, my goal is to get me to straighten up and get my shit together. Okay, well, that's a fine goal. You want to straighten up, you want to feel better around money, but that bullying yourself, and this is part of the Money Talk Makeover workshop too, is really looking at, in my professional experience, I have yet to meet anyone who successfully made sustainable changes to their money life with negative self-talk.
Interesting.
Have you?
Yeah, no, I don't
sense?
think so. I think that is a fundamental thing that has to shift. When you were talking about the bullies, I was thinking of other people actually in the financial world who sort of use that technique to get people to make changes. And so I don't like it. I don't recommend those people, but I know that they've had success. So, there's this interesting fine line of how hard do you need to push yourself or be pushed to make certain changes versus the kind of compassion, curiosity, is that going to allow you to sort of be a little, I don't know, for lack of a better word, lazier about, moving?
Yeah. Well, it's a really good point, because what we're looking at, and let's go back to the intersection of money and milkshakes, because one of the things that I say there is diet is to food what budget is to money. Okay. Because diet or budget or quick fix or get out of debt quick. So there's a big difference here of staying out of debt and getting out of debt. Big difference. So, but they make a promise of quick change. And if you are miserable, do you want quick change, or, hey, this will take a year or more to change? What do you want? 30 days or 12 months? Okay. Yeah. So we don't have to judge ourselves for falling for it or for wanting it. But one of the biggest things that I talk about is we want sustainable change. So if you are not going to do it on a regular basis, don't do it for a week. That's not sustainable, and that's just going to make you feel bad about yourself. That's the diet. That's the problem with diets, is they tend to give a lot of rigidity, a lot of rules, and budgets can be right the same way. Classic rephrasing that we do in financial therapy world is to talk about a plan instead of a budget, because the budget tends to already have an emotional response for people in their body. So first check with your body and see if it's like, then, let's not use the word budget. So let's use the word plan, or something that has the quality of adjustments without judgment. So one of my other principles is a plan is only as good as its adjustment process. So when we take that and we apply it with zero judgment, then we get something that can be sustainable. And that is really key. So if you ended up, let's say you ended up with so much compassionate curiosity that you never get off the couch. Well, that's not sustainable. Right. So you gotta, you want to recalibrate constantly. And that is kind of how we look at, is this really going to work for the long run?
Yeah, that's so excellent. And it's also, I don't like the fact that there are sort of financial formulas and just follow this, because I don't think they are, they're not sustainable, because they don't take you into account. And so each person is unique and different. And so really making sure that that's something that they can and want to do. So, if you want to talk about budgeting, I mean, some people want to budget to the penny. I was never one of those people. Right. I can't even do it. But it was good enough to budget a different way. You don't have to do every single thing in the way somebody else does it to make it work for you. So I think there is a lot of play in there. and you just have to figure it out. I mean, it's just like paying off debt. You can pay off the one with the highest interest rate, which, I could see where that is a best choice. But maybe you have a small one that you need to pay off quickly just to get the feeling of, I paid this off. And that's just more important. So it really is. And one thing that I think the financial industry has not done a good job of is sort of customizing, these financial strategies for individuals. Which I think, you would do for people because you're getting to know them on that level. And that's the other thing is, when you have a financial therapist or a financial coach, that person is getting to know your financial situation, not just from a number standpoint, which I think a lot of financial advisors, they see the numbers, but they're not getting deeply enough into your situation, your relationships, your family, all the things, and your wants. Everybody, success is a completely different thing for different people. So,
yes.
Yeah. And that's one thing I definitely wanted to ask you. So when you're talking about, okay, what are your financial goals? What do you really want? Do you find that people have shame around that? And are they even in touch with it? Can they even think, maybe they need to think bigger because they just don't know how to do that? What do you see out there?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a couple of great examples. Yes, there's shame around it. So shame says you're not going to do it good enough. So why try? I would think, for your audience that are business owners, how many of you have written a business plan for 2024 at this point? Don't raise your hand if you're driving, and also don't start crying. It's okay if you haven't, but we don't want to judge it. We want to notice it. We want to be like, okay, what's getting in the way? Maybe some perfectionism or whatever. So we've got, what gets in the way of goals and plan. And also, a lot of times people who struggle with money struggle with the sense of owning their own money. And if that makes sense to you, if I use that phrase. So if you don't own it, why plan for it? Why make a plan for it? So we really want to look at what gets in the way. And we can start with just naming whose money is it. One exercise that I give a lot of my clients, especially those who have inherited wealth, that's a whole nother episode probably, Michelle, because there's so many emotions around that. But the short story is being able to write about or talk about what story do you want the money to tell. And that really helps bring in their sense of ownership and helps them begin to look at it and then map out a plan. Because sometimes they want to give it away real quickly, but what is actually more sustainable would be, and I'm not a financial expert, I'm just telling you based on colloquial wisdom, you might could set up a trust or something that will fund your favorite charity on a regular basis. So in other words, there's more than one way to look at it, and you want to look at what is underlying your decision making here and what is the goal that you really want to have for this money. Same with a business plan. I have people start first with how much money do you want to bring into your home each year from this business? And that's sometimes that takes hours for them to figure out because they've never asked that question before, right?
Right. And sometimes they're not taking any money into the home from their business.
Often. Yeah. And no judgment. No judgment. We want to help you really understand that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. I do think, money is... there are nuances to it for business owners and also, in relationship. So if you are, if you have a partner, then whether that's a business partner or just a life partner, there's so many dynamics around money that contribute to all kinds of, usually negative things, but sometimes positive. I mean, it can be used positively if you know what you're doing, but it can be very hard. It can be very hard to communicate about money. It can be very hard to share openly about, what's going on with money in your family, in your relationship, and even in your business. I think sometimes we put some kind of blinders on and we're looking at certain metrics. Maybe it's revenue and we're not looking at other metrics like profitability or whether or not we're paying ourselves a salary. I mean, there's a lot that we sort of filter what we want to address as business owners because really we're focused on our business. We're focusing on delivering whatever service or product or whatever it is that we do. And that's a whole other realm with money that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in thinking about today, we're talking a little bit about healing your money story. So I might answer that in that frame because
Yeah.
I would want to know, how do I heal it? And how do I know if it's healed? Because it's
Great question.
it's very in our thoughts, it's very in our head. And I remember when I was working with eating disorders, because they are also very in with eating disorders, it's not about food, you're treating the brain, but you think it's about food. It looks like it's about food, right? And money stuff, it looks like it's about money. Shouldn't we just rearrange the dollar bills on the table? But I think I would always say, I wish, in fact, I said this to a client recently, I wish your hair turned purple the more severe your eating disorder thought got, or maybe the more intense or preoccupying your money thoughts are, and got less purple as it gets calmer, right? It'd
Yeah,
be
that's
so
great.
helpful because there's not a metric for this. But if you're healing it, you're taking it, you're looking at it, you're allowing it the time and space to do different. Okay, if we put it that way. So, this is where that awareness comes in, where the things we've talked about, whether it be how to talk to a partner, how to talk to aging parents, how to talk to your kids, how to talk to yourself. All of those places we want to, I can frame it in, we want to decrease reactivity in order to increase connection to where you actually want to go. Does that kind of make sense to you?
Yeah,
Like,
and that's
if you
brilliant.
put
It's
it
just
that
not as
way.
easy to actually do. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Reducing the reactive kind of emotions and allowing yourself to connect, because it is the connection that breaks down when you have conversations that get too intense. I love that you brought up
Right,
aging
right.
parents. That's another whole show. I'd love for you to come back and talk about
For
that.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many money conversations, but to circle back, if you don't even know how to talk or, express things about money to yourself, and
Yes.
you're using all this negativity and how you're speaking to yourself, how can you really, well, again, you're the therapist. Can you have like good conversations with people if you're not even able to, speak to yourself properly about money?
Yeah, you can. You don't necessarily have to change or fix your money talk in order to communicate with someone. What that usually means is you increase your active listening. So that means you increase your ability to take a breath when someone else, like if someone says, "Well, how much is that going to cost?" And that maybe that sends you into orbit, and you're just like, "Oh my gosh, they think I'm spending too much," or "Oh my gosh, they're going to know I don't have any money for this," or whatever the "oh my gosh" is. So if someone says that, then you want to catch yourself. You want to pause, take a breath. Remember, they're asking a question. They don't know your thoughts. They don't know your bank balance, right? How many times have we assumed people know our bank balance and they don't, right?
Yeah.
So coming into that, so as you practice just calming and breathing and changing that reaction, you can stay for maybe 30 more seconds in that conversation and connect for 30 more seconds. And then the next time you stay for a minute longer, and so on and so on. So it's these small changes make big differences.
Yeah, that's fabulous. So we are just about out of time, and I'm so sad. What would you leave people with in terms of, with respect to this idea of healing your relationship? I mean, the first thing is to understand that you even have a relationship with money, and then to, dig into that. But then when you find the issues there, the things that really could be fixed or addressed so that you can have a better relationship with money. Any final thoughts on healing that for yourself?
Yes, I will have a thought, and I will preface it by saying nobody wants to hear me say this, Michelle, but I'm going to say be patient, because if you think about, if you're healing a wound, one of the biggest parts of that healing process, if you broke your leg, you just got to sit down for a while, right? You just got to let it heal. When it comes to money, it takes a lot of patience. And it's actually another of my principles, because one of the frustrating things about money work is it's never done. Like, you never really just wrap your money up in a bow and say, see you
That's right.
later. So having a lot of patience and knowing it's going to take time. So that, which, completely circles back to the compassionate curiosity and allowing that space, it really makes a difference. Like, I have clients often tell me, I didn't think this change was possible, and it's happening. But it
Wow.
may have been 6 months or a year. Like, it takes time. But they had the patience, they saw it through. And your listeners, like, I love that you've brought me on today, that we've been able to talk to your listeners about this, to even just help soothe something today or this weekend in their money thoughts and feelings, to be able to take that deep breath, to be able to check out my resources at financialtherapysolutions.com. And absolutely, I hope I get to come back and we can talk about some of sort of the financial therapy approach to these other areas.
Yes, I would love that too, especially when you brought up the aging parents. I had to deal with this year with the communication or the lack of communication and when to communicate. And so many people have said, "Oh, I know I need to have these conversations, but I just hate it. Like, I don't want to do it. It's like so sad." And yeah, so that would be an amazing show because it's so important to I didn't realize how important it was to not put that off actually until I was in the midst of it all. So yeah, there's a lot more to talk about. And I love that you brought up the patience, because I do think that anything that is really good in your life that you want to achieve, it does take patience. And this isn't any different. There's no, again, the industry would have you think there's a quick fix out there, but, maybe. But I don't see that typically. I think it does take patience. It takes work. It takes doing this kind of healing. And as a final question, if you decide, I don't have the time, I don't want to even do this, what is what's the impact of having a not so great relationship with money and not healing it?
Wow. The impact of not healing your money relationship. Well, sometimes that impact will fall on our loved ones because they'll be the ones cleaning up the mess. Sometimes that impact can lead to, well, let's look at you, like the individual. There's a lot of research and that supports your body is going to tell the story. So a lot of GI distress, a lot of joint discomfort, a lot of headaches, a lot of maybe breathing issues because you can't breathe. You can't take a deep breath if you're stressed about money. And even if you're avoiding it, you're likely avoiding it because you're stressed. So you're avoiding the stress, you're burying the stress with another layer of avoidance. And, so there's a lot of things that come there. So there is financial risk, but there's also physical risk, mental risk, emotional risk, because then you also tend to not connect with people because you are either actively trying to hide or passively trying to just stay off their radar. There's a lot of ways it shows up that I really encourage people to take that step, take just some of the initial steps. I have initial steps on my website as far as just free resources and things to begin that process because it's so important. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. I really love that because I do think people need to be motivated to address this relationship. And, my motivation is usually this is the foundational piece that you need to do all the other practical things. And, you brought up just great points about how this is what you need just to be able to live a healthy, happy life. I mean, it really is. It isn't just about money. It leaks into every other aspect of your life. And it is an important relationship, as important as any other. It's one that is with us our whole lifetime. So very important to work on that healing. So thank you. That was a great explanation you just gave. And
you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. And, I wish we could talk more. Thank you so much for being here. Will you tell people a little more about how they can find out about your workshop coming up in January and other ways to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So financialtherapysolutions.com is the, great way. It's the website. Instagram is at Financial Therapy Solutions and Facebook is something similar to that. I can't remember right now. But it's all linked on my website because that's where I really encourage you to start. There's a free there's something free, a free resource that you can get right now. It's an intentional shopping exercise that may be really helpful. A little video and workbook to do for that. And then sign up for, January 24th, 2024, $24 for the
I love
workshop. And it's Money Talk Makeover, and it is a workshop. You will, bring your journal, bring a piece of paper. We're going to write scripts. We're going to change how you talk about something, or even change how you think about thinking about talking about it. So we want to get that runway started in the workshop. And I do workshops quarterly. So, getting on the email list keeps you abreast of all that. And the investments you make in the workshop is applied as a discount to any of the online programs as well. So Intersection of Money and Milkshakes is there. Money Mindset Shift is there too.
Okay. Wow. I love that. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And if you'll send me any URL for the workshop, I'll put it in the show notes as well. And thank you so much. I think this was a great conversation. I think you seem very relatable, very easy to talk to, and you're exactly the right type of person to talk to, especially if you have shame or judgment or guilt or whatever things that you need to talk about with respect to your money. So thank you very much for doing the work you do. It's fantastic. And and being able to bring the psychology, really a knowledgeable level of that into the process. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time today. And audience, thank you for coming and showing up on the Money and You podcast. I would love it if you would review the show, share it with your friends. That will really help us to bring other great guests like Wendy onto the show on a more regular basis. And love that you're here. You can find us on all the podcast platforms, the Limit Free Life YouTube channel, Roku, and some other places. And please keep joining us each week for great, diverse shows on all things financial and money relationship and money mindset. So again, thanks for being here, and we'll see you next week.